Hello all, you're very welcome to our presentation on the Maynooth University John and Pat Hume Doctoral Awards scheme. This is an information session and giving you tips on how to make your application and what you need to include and timings, etc. So we established the John and Pat Hume Doctoral Awards in 2005 after John Hume, who was an alumni of the university. And we have had a large number of students over that time receiving the awards, and we are delighted to continue offering the John and Pat Hume Doctoral Awards. So what are the John and Pat Hume Doctoral Awards?
This is the current John and Pat Hume Scholarship Award. Stipend, expenses and fees.
We have announced two different types of awards, one for Women in STEM Fellow Scholarships and one, there's two Women in STEM Hume Fellow Scholarships and one Maynooth Access Hume Scholarship. So when you are making your application, these are the main things that you need to think about. It is open to prospective doctoral students only, so you cannot be on a research programme already and intend to transfer into year 2 or year 3 of a PhD. It must be a new programme. As I said, it's a single competition, so your application is into the one portal on PAC, and all applications are considered for the main doctoral awards, and if you wish to be included for an EDI, you have a separate section. You must include with your application 2 referees. Now, your supervisor can act as a referee as well, but your supervisor must also confirm their willingness to supervise you and to support your application. And I would say that you shouldn't just make it a surprise to the supervisor to that they get an email from PAC, from the application portal, to say, are you willing to supervise this student? You should always be in contact with your potential supervisor and your referees, but I'll go through that further on. As I've said, allocations are at faculty level and the application deadline is the 8th of April. 2022, so that is the last minute of the 8th of April 2022, but your referees and your supervisors must also have uploaded their material or given their support by the 8th of April. So you won't be able to submit your application until the references have been uploaded and the supervisor has indicated their willingness to approve your application. Eligibility. So this is the first protocol. You must have a first class or second class honours undergraduate degree in your department or a discipline or cognate discipline, but that must be approved by your proposed supervisor. So it may be that you have a 2-1 in economics and you may want to do a PhD in business, so that's a cognate discipline, but you will be talking to your supervisor and it will be the fit between you and your supervisor anyway. If you don't have a first class undergraduate degree and you have a master's, your master's must be a first class or upper second class honours degree. So basically you have to have a first or a 2-1 in either your undergraduate or your master's. Now, if you are completing your studies right now, you can still apply and you will be upload your penultimate last year's grades and your application will be considered, but it will be conditional on you having achieved at the end a first class or a 2-1 in either your undergraduate or your master's degree. Eligibility exclusions, I've nearly kind of gone through those too. You are ineligible unless you are commencing your PhD. You're ineligible if you have a John and Pat Hume scholarship already, and any other queries are in our terms and conditions, but they are the main things, you know, that we get the most questions about. Can a student who is already in the PhD, can you apply for the Hume? You can, but you will be deemed ineligible. So how do we look at your application? So we have the quality of the applicant and the quality of the project proposal and the fit of the proposed research and the candidate with the department's expertise and research areas. And I'm going to go through those in a moment. Each of those criteria receives equal weighting when they're being reviewed by the department, and your applications are also reviewed by faculty after the department. If you're indicating that you wish to be considered for an EDI, the Dean of Graduate Studies and the EDI or the Access Office will work and review your EDI applications separately to the main doctoral awards being reviewed by your department and your faculty. So the criteria for the EDI MAP, that's the Maynooth Access Programme, you're an entrant to higher education from a socio-economic group that have low participation rates in higher education, i.e. the HARE scheme, a first-time mature student, or if you have a disability and you've entered undergraduate through the DARE scheme. And then there's other widening participatory entry routes. And when you're making those applications, if you're not sure whether you could apply, if you hit wish to look at if you hit that you are interested on the application doing to apply for an EDI award, there's specific questions there that highlight exactly have you registered with your Access Office, were you a HARE student, were you a DARE student, etc. Our EDI Wish this is part of the Athena Swan initiative to encourage women in the STEMs. So they are going to be offered to the 2 top-rate female doctoral applicants. And as I said, they're 18.5 scholarships. Now, priority is given to departments in Maynooth where the uptake of females in that particular, they're underrepresented in chemistry, computer science, electronic engineering, experimental physics and theoretical physics. That doesn't mean you can't apply if your project is of a STEM, science, technology or engineering, maths cohort, but priority is given to those particular disciplines. And as I've said, all of the EDI will be considered for the main awards as well. So now I'm going to go through your application and what we're going to look at. So the personal details and contact details, I'm presuming you can all do that. We'll go through the academic history. That is, you have to put your undergraduate qualifications and your postgraduate qualifications, and you must upload your transcripts or your penultimate year transcripts for those who haven't completed, your proposed research project and your personal statement. And I'm going to go through those in great detail. There's a section there for the EDI, as I've mentioned, and then you have to have a section on the application form where you put in your proposed supervisor's name and they get an email to say that they are willing to support. And then you also have to put in the emails of 2 referees, and the PAC system contacts the referee and they upload a reference to your application. But you won't be able to see it, but it's actually, we know that the referee reference has been uploaded, and then you can review your application and you can make sure that you've uploaded your all your documents. So your main documents will be your transcripts, your personal statement, and your project proposal, including the supplemental work. So your proposed research project, and there's a section there when you look at there at the beginning about an abstract. So it's very important when you're thinking about your proposed research project that it is going to be reviewed by your department, but it'll also be reviewed by your faculty. So we would imagine that most people in your department would understand the language and the terminology that you use, but it has to be understood by people who are in your discipline and in your surrounding area, but they may not know the nuances. So you have to make it clear and to communicate it effectively to both types of evaluators. This is your first stage of becoming researchers, and part of being a researcher is grantsmanship, and you will be writing grants probably for a long time to come. And you have to, this is one of your starting points of doing that, writing this research application, research scholarship application, and you must be able to communicate effectively with your audience and your particular discipline, but also with the surrounding. And that's one of the key things about being a researcher. We see now, and COVID has shown us, so many academics have been on the television or the radio, and they've had to be able to converse and get that message across, what the science is behind the message, but it has to be understood by everybody as well. When you're writing your project proposal, there's a key areas here, and Aileen is going to put into the chat a kind of a guide to writing a research proposal, but you can find many of them on the website. But I'm going to give you my plan or my idea, just in words, because sometimes you read things and you're not 100% sure. You must describe your topic, including your aims and objectives and your central research question, and your methodology, how you're going to do it, and the research plan. So in brief, what does that mean? When you're taking your research project, and many of you have them already picked, but sometimes our research projects are too broad. They're way too broad. This is a project that you're going to complete in 4 years, and you have to write that research project that it looks as if you can complete it in the 4 years. So when I think about it, I say I'm going to save Maynooth Town, but that's not going to be able to save Maynooth Town in 4 years. But you might have to narrow that down to a certain area. I'm going to save Maynooth College. Well, still in all, that might be too much. I might need to save the John Hume building, or a floor on the John Hume building. So that's what you're actually looking at. What you're trying to do, you can put it in context about I'm saving Maynooth, but actually in this research, I'm going to just save this particular part of it. Your methodology, and again, that changes, I suppose, between the disciplines, but especially in the social sciences and the Faculty of Arts and Humanities, you may have to think about the theoretical framework. What's the lens you're going to do? What's the analytical method you're going to use? Whether it's going to be quantitative or qualitative, whether you're going to survey people. All those kind of things you need to think about now. And you'll be talking to your supervisor, your potential supervisor, and they're a great resource to you. And looking at other research projects and completed PhDs are also another fine source, because you can actually see, well, what did they use as the methodology? Now, when you're writing, this is your proposed research project, and we know that it may change over the course of the 4 years, but it's what you had started with. What was the idea and the methodology you were using? And as time goes by and you start your PhD, that methodology may not work and you may have to change. But for the moment, what, with rose-tinted glasses, how you think you're going to work on that project. In addition, the research plan, and it's a schedule, and I would encourage you to write a Gantt chart, or or something like that, or an Excel spreadsheet. In year 1, I'm going to do my lit review. In year 2, that means you're getting into the area, finding exactly what's going on, understanding the literature, developing the idea of the methodology that you're going to use. In year 2, you start looking at the methodology, you start to write that. You maybe start with your research questions, you might start with your surveys, you may be in the lab working on that particular project. Year 3, 4, you're gathering the data, and year 3, gathering and analysing the data, and year 4, completion. And maybe in your Gantt chart, if you'd say you might want to present at a conference in year 3 on what you found already, or attend conferences. So basically you're doing this synopsis of what you're going to do in each of the years of your 4 years to complete your PhD. And it's a very good process because it actually puts it into timelines. And I suppose we're all guided by having time allocated to certain parts of our project. And then we know when we have actually reached those milestones. So you have to write that research project proposal in 4 pages. And there is guidelines, I think it's 9.5 spacing and 11 font. And it is 4 pages, and we will only take 4 pages. Anyone coming in with 5 or 6, we will delete page 5 and 6. So maybe the punchline will go, we'll tell you we're doing it, but we can't accept it. It wouldn't be fair on every other applicant that has got their message into 4 pages. But you are also allowed to upload 3 pages for additional information, like your charts, like the Gantt chart. You can put that in, and you can note it in your research proposal. Please note my Gantt chart, and your bibliography. So obviously you're going to be citing people within your research project proposal. You don't have to include that in the 4 pages. The 4 pages is just your research proposal. And as I've said in the guide, there is about formatting, but I think it's 9.5 and 11 point. So then we ask you to do your personal statement. And we in Ireland, I'm not very good at writing personal statements about ourselves. So you have to make sure, and it is one of the key areas for consideration, the personal statement, the personal fit. Why are you going to do this PhD? What passion do you have to do this PhD? What experience? What is your interest to do this PhD? My own daughter did a PhD, and she wrote and did a few grants and IRCs, etc. But she had started with the line, "I was an inquiring child." And so all of a sudden, the reviewers see you as the person. And we have to see you as the person within your personal statement, that you're able to conduct this research and make sure that you've included any research that you've already done. Perhaps you were part of the Young Scientist. You have always been interested in research. You've obviously done your thesis for your undergraduate or part of your master's, and you've gone on to continue this study. It could be a personal interest why you want to undertake this research. It could be that somebody in your family has had a disability and you want to continue on to study and to see what can we do to improve their life. Maybe it's in terms of social context, but also in terms of science. And it's basically why you are the person to do this research. So you have to give, as I've said here, give a full picture of yourself, of your capabilities, your motivation, your interests, both academic and non-academic. And the best thing I would say to people here is write that personal statement and give it to somebody to read, and give it to somebody that knows you, because they will tell you, you forgot to put that in, or you forgot to put, did you know, remember you did that. We don't like to sell ourselves as best we can, but this is a time to shine, and don't hide under a bushel. Now, you don't have to say you're the best person in the world, because, you know, nobody is the best person in the world, but they're getting to know you and your capability to do this research project. So where does the fit of the applicant in the department, how does that differ to the personal statement? Well, the personal statement is how you will be able to do this research, but then why you are picking the department. And so many of you now have looked at the departments and have chosen a department. And I would say to all students when they're looking at a potential supervisor, and I suspect most of you have done this at the moment, but if you haven't, it's on our guidebook, how to find a supervisor. So you go in to the website and you put in the research topic that you're interested in. So it could be immunology. So it's find a supervisor, and it could be immunology. And you will get everybody who has research in immunology. And then you could look at all those very briefly, click in, and you can see what their research areas are. And all of a sudden, there'll be one or two that will jump off the page and say, oh my God, I can't wait to study that. That's exactly how I'd like to undertake my research. I love their writings. Then you get into the publications. And from there, you are actually getting an analysis of what the department and you are engaged in. And there could be two. So therefore, you now have two people who are in that department who are writing very similar to you, researching very similar to what you would like to do. But it's also very good to get phrases and terminologies about when you're doing your project proposal, about how they write about their particular topic. So you gain an awful lot by looking at supervisors, overviews of the supervisor on their websites. And equally, it's good to have a look outside as well to see who is in researching similar topics to you in Ireland as well. So that is something that I would suggest you also look at and include in your, it can be included here and also in your project proposal, because you're not an island. Nobody doing a research project it should be an island. You should know, if I'm going to solve the dilemma of the top floor of the John Hume building, I should know who's researching the next floor down or the next floor, or actually just around what is going on in the research of Maynooth. Just have an overview, because we're supposed to be linking in. A lot of the external funding that the government has given, both SFI funding and IRC, asks applicants and grants to indicate what research has been done, so that as a synergy here in Ireland, we are linking in with other researchers, and you will gain so much from that, because on your journey it's going to be lonely sometimes and you'll go, oh dear, how are we ever going to get to this? But if you're with other people, you will be able to say, I'm stuck here, and you read their work and they may read yours, and all of a sudden you go, oh yeah, we're grand again, and off you go. So no one should see themselves isolated. So that's why we mean the fit of the applicant and the department. So that what work has been in your department, you like the work of your proposed supervisor, you're very conscious that somebody else in the department is also working on it. And here, as I've said, that no one is an island. In many of our departments are linked to research institutes. In the Faculty of Arts is Digital and Humanities Institute, the Social Sciences, the Social Science Institute, easily named, and then there's many institutes in the sciences, NCG, Hamilton, etc. And you should find the work that your supervisors are doing with those institutes, and so that institutes provide a cover of all the different types. So it could be anthropology and sociology, and people are working together on projects. So that's very good if you could include that you have looked at the variety of the institutes and the interdisciplinarity of your department. And it's 300 words, so it's not a huge amount, but it is how your research project aligns with your department's expertise and research areas. But if you bring in pieces like, I understand our department is linked to this institute, and, so you're actually bringing the full circle. So when I've said it's broad on your research topic, you need to broaden it out in your fit of you and the department, so that they know that you've looked at the work that's been done in your department and the expertise that's there, and how you are going to be supported by that department and add to the department in that area of research. As I've already mentioned the EDI, and if you have any queries, we ask you to contact the Youth Access Office concerning your eligibility, etc. But it is fairly clear in the terms and conditions, and it's very clear in the application as well. Academic references. I hope, what are we on now, the 16th? I hope many of you have started to reach out to the referee, because the referee is a very important part of your project. They're going to outline where they see you within this research project. So it is important that you pick somebody that knows you and an academic referee. Mandatory for all applicants, both past and current Maynooth students. So we're not going to be ringing up your current supervisor or your undergraduate research project person. You must contact the referee, and they have to upload a reference for you. How do you make that information? Well, they should know you, but you give them enough information about the John and Pat Hume Doctoral Awards. Inform them about your research project. If you haven't finished, you can give them an overview, but you can give them your research project to have a look at and say, this is what I'm planning to do. It may not be finalised, but give them an overview of what you're intending to do. As I've said, give them plenty of notice. Don't ask them on the last week, the 1st of April, because they might think it's an April Fool, because they've got 8 days to write these references. So I will be contacting them now, And you will be able to see on your PAC application whether the referee has uploaded. So you can send them little gentle reminders, maybe if you contacted them, if the 16th now, on the 26th, and then again on the 1st, trying to get them in on time. But they will be prompted. But also for good grantsmanship is also, once they have submitted the reference, and you will be told on PAC that the reference has been uploaded, send them a little thank you for writing, for taking the time to write your reference for you. As I've said, it's an online submission and they must comply with the formal requirements. So obviously you can't submit without them. So it's very, very important. Your supervisors, again, I am hoping that most of you have done that, but actually I am hearing in the last few days that supervisors are, students are just indicating a supervisor and not contacting the supervisor. It's very important. This is going to be the relationship with you and your supervisor for the next 4 years. So you must drop them an email and saying, I'm hoping to apply for a Hume. Would you be willing to accept me or support my application? This is in general my research proposal, and get that off now as soon as possible. And then if he says yes, you can, or she, you can send them a copy of your draft if you wished. So it's very easy. List of supervisors are on the drop down list on the PAC portal, and they will be just simply asked, I am willing to supervise this subject to them being awarded a Hume, or I am not in a position to supervise this student. So again, I'm just saying the time is of the essence. So we're coming on to a very nice long weekend. So I would encourage everybody to have reached out to supervisors and referees today, even just to reach out to say, I'm intending to apply for a Hume. Are you willing to supervise? I'm intending to apply for a Hume. Are you willing to act as a referee for me? Late applications will not be accepted. Results expected in early to mid-June, and you must start either in the September or the January registration. Okay, I do encourage people to start in September because the IRC counts it as a full year. If you commence in January 2023, they consider that whole year as a full year. And many of you who are awarded Hume do go on to apply for an IRC. Again, it's a very prestigious award. And it's good to have had the Hume on your CV, on your application, because it goes to prove that you've been reviewed by an assessment process and they've deemed you worthy to receive a research award. Many of the IRCs are not awarded to students until they are in their second year. But the closing date is now well past, but just to note that I do encourage people to start in the September, unless there is extenuating circumstances. Tips, as again, kind of a regroup here. As I've said, you are becoming researchers when you become and start your PhD, and good grantsmanship is a learned skill. And so this is your starting part of grantsmanship. But be positive about your project and be prepared. And when I say be prepared, I am saying contact your supervisor, contact your referee in advance. Look for the transcripts. If I had a penny for every time the week before the closing, I can't get me transcripts. My university can send them out for another week. But if you've asked them in time, they will. So go and make sure, if you need to get your transcripts from another university, go and get them, and have them in your pile that's saying John and Pat Hume application. You have a rough draft of your research proposal, you have a rough draft of your personal statement, all in 2 different Word files, and you start working on that, but all have everything together. So be prepared, because it's so important that you don't get yourself all in a dither on the last week. Do's and don'ts. Put yourself in the mind of the reviewer. As I've said, the reviewers will be both in your department and outside, so you have to make sure that they will understand the message. Be positive about your project. You can only get points for what you include in your proposal, so keep your topic on. Be very specific, be on point with your topic. Avoid vague language. For example, your background information. So as I've said, I was thinking about researching Maynooth Town. but now I'm only on the top floor. So you're getting in there, but they've seen where you're in context with. So you have to put a little bit of the background, but that's only a line, and then you can get into the main text. Make it as easy as possible. Spell things out, as I've said, the Venn diagram. If you're going to interview, like how many people, this is the vague language. You may not know, but in your head, you think, I'm going to interview 20 people. What type of sampling? What archives, if you're going to visit archives, where are they? And in your Gantt chart, I'm going to visit this archive in Spain in May of my second year, because it'd be nice weather then, so that would be a good time to go. But, you know, so you're kind of following back and forward through your journey. So anyone reading this, even if they're not fully aware of your research proposal, they should be able to get what you're saying. Consult with your prospective supervisor. Do get to talk to the supervisor. Many supervisors will want to see your research project, and they will give you feedback and proofread it. Comply with the terms and conditions, read the guide for applicants, that's very important, and submit on time. And I should put another one. I've told you to get somebody that you know to read your personal statement, but give that person, and they might need a cup of coffee afterwards to say thank you, but give them everything to read, because by the time you've gone back and forward to your project proposal and personal statement, you'll have forgotten the most simplest things, you know, full stops, all of that kind of thing. So important to have everything spot on, because it is an intense competition. There is, you know, a large number of applications, so you want to make sure yours sings out clean, tidy, no spelling mistakes. This person knows what they're doing. They seem to have always wanted to do this research project. They've got a bit of experience in it. They've thought about it, and it's easy to see. And that's the most important thing when you're writing your project proposal. And every piece about your Hume, it should all sell the same message. It's nearly like when you're doing your thesis. You start off at the very beginning, your lit review, etc., and you go to the end, and you've done your sampling and analysis and everything, and then you actually have to start at the end and work your way all the way back, because you might have mentioned somebody at the end, cited extra people, because it's become, you know, as you're reading the literature, and you might have missed them in the lit review. So the whole thing has to follow a kind of a thread throughout. So go from the top of the application, your project proposal, personal statement, the fit, down to the end, and then read it back. They should nearly all, yes, this is the same person. So that's a very important to look at everything. So as I said, read the guide. The online system is PAC. You can return to it, so you can upload your transcripts, etc., and you can save it. But I wouldn't. There is a place for you to insert words in the fit, but I would actually, anything that I'm writing, I'd put it on a Words document, and then when I'm ready to put it in, I'll put it in to the application. So we do have the email prompts to the referees and the supervisors, and please upload your transcripts. So the supports that we have on the website are the terms and conditions. They're very important. Your guide, frequently asked questions, and we will be taking questions, and we will be adding to the FAQ and dating them up till the 1st of April. Then the same process is done by the IRC. They have a cut-off then. And then if you have any queries, contact the Hume email, and either myself or Aileen will be, and it'll be normally Aileen that will get back to you on anything that you can't find or you need further information on. And now I'm going to open it up to questions. And Aileen, have we many questions?
We don't have any questions in the chat. If anyone wants to turn on your mic and ask a question, please go ahead, or just send it in the chat. Either one is fine.
Hi, Marina. I was just actually wondering. Oh, I'm sorry.
If you want to just maybe just put your hand up or something, and we'll go by.
Yeah. Cheers. I was just wondering, with the MAP award, is that separate to the John Hume, or is it in addition to the grant for funding for the John Hume?
Yeah, so the main scheme, we have about 30 scholarships in all, and so we've only 3 EDI, so everybody will be considered for the main scheme, everybody.
Yeah.
And then in addition, you can apply for the EDI, but it's all on the same form.
Yeah, okay. So it's kind
Okay.
of like a top up nearly, is it?
It's a top up, it's an extra. Yeah.
Okay, no problem. Cheers.
Okay. Who else have I got?
George, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, thank you. Just wondering, can you still be employed and still get the doctorate award, or how does that work? Is it sort of means tested?
Oh no, there's no means. This is an award for academic excellence.
Brilliant.
Okay. Now our schemes, our scholarships are subject to Section 193, so you don't pay tax on that. But you must be a full-time student, George.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else, Eileen?
Got a hand up from Wise. Do you want to go ahead?
Hi, Eileen. So my question was about women in STEM. So in one of the slides, it was mentioned that 2 awards are dedicated solely to the women from underrepresented backgrounds like chemistry and these kind of things. So does it mean that from 30, only 2 women will receive the reward, or is it separate? Like, is it just
separate? They're separate awards.
Apart from these 30 awards? So,
well, the whole scheme is about 30, is roughly about 30, depends on the faculty distribution, but the EDI are only 3 awards. So let's say there's 27 others.
Okay, I see. And do they need to apply separately for this, or will they automatically be considered for wish?
No, there's an EDI section on the application form. There's a separate EDI section on the application form, and you tick whether you wish to be considered for either the wish or the map.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
We've got another question in the chat from Gupta. It's I'm currently pursuing my master's in design innovation in MU. Am I eligible to apply for the award? Yes, if you are going into first year PhD.
Yeah, and it will be conditional. You still have to meet the eligibility criteria. Your application, you can apply, and your application will be considered because you are undertaking a master's. But if you haven't a first or a 2-1 in your undergrad, you will need to have a first or a 2-1 in your master's.
Then we've got a question from Thalita. Can graphs and figures be part of the 4 pages, or are they in the additional ones? They're in the additional documents.
Basically, you can do whatever you like with the 4 pages and the additional, right? So, but your project proposal, we consider that in the 4 pages. And I would encourage most of you to use the 4 pages. It's trying to get it down into 4 pages, and you can use the 3 pages then for the support material, like as I said, the graph or the Gantt chart or the bibliography. And not everybody uses the support, but I would say, try and get your application in the 4 pages of the project proposal. But if it makes sense to have a diagram within it and you feel it works and it aids your description rather than say see additional material, that's okay too. Whatever you think makes your project proposal clean and clear to the reviewers.
Great, super. Christopher, I've sent the link there for information about the IRC. If anyone else has any questions, just pop them in the chat or just put up your hand.
Actually, that's an interesting question about the IRC. The IRC, like the John Hume application, is, the first stage of grantsmanship. The IRC is a bigger application, but they do ask interesting questions on it, and I've maybe alluded to them there, as in where does your project fit within the research around existing research being done, and also they ask about disseminating your knowledge. Where how are you going to get this knowledge out to the society? So much of the research and the reason why there's a lot of funding in doctoral education is to, from Ireland's perspective, is to develop our economy and to build a better society. Because many of you who complete a PhD now work outside of academia in public policy, in social areas, or public and private. So you need to be able to say where would this research fit and how you will get it out to the public and what impact it would have. So that word impact is also very useful. I should have mentioned that they like the word impact, what this research is how it's going to impact on society. And it may be just a tiny bit, but it's just that you've thought about it and how you get that information. Attendance of conferences is the easiest way to say that, because you're going to work with people in your area and then you present your data at conferences. But it could be write a paper for a journal in social education or something like that. It's just in your area. And again, if you look at the research that's been done by your supervisors and supervisors in your area, look at their publications, you begin to see where they have been, what they've written to, where they've presented. So that's just a top. I just threw that in there because you mentioned about the IRC and they do ask that question. So I think it's nice to kind of have an idea what the next funding call would be like, but it's also good to include it in this funding call.
All right, super.
Okay.
Do we have any other questions from people?
So I think you're all going to be busy for the long weekend, but do try and get out the email to the referees and to the supervisors. I think that's critically important at this point. And they're not going to do anything about it before next Monday, but at least you've given them an extra 4 days to think about it. So I'm conscious of supervisors' time and people who are writing references, and you want them to think favourably of you rather than asking them for a reference on the 7th of April. And you putting pressure on them going, I won't get my funding. Nice, be prepared, be calm, start doing it now. Get people to have a look at it, because people will give you their input. People that know you will say, but you forgot to mention that. So I hope that's been useful to you, and we wish you well. Please send any emails to the Hume email, and we will be able to respond to you as quickly as possible. And we wish you well in your application.